Hello everybody and welcome to another video. So for this video what I kind of wanted to do is take a look at the Evangelion manga and manga spin-offs. So the reason for this is because I realise as we reach the 25th anniversary of the Evangelion franchise, there are probably a lot of people now who are getting into the series for the very first time. You know, you've seen it on Netflix, you've heard about the 25th anniversary, you've maybe seen posts in various media outlets about the fourth theatrical release coming early next year in Japan. So you might have watched the series for the first time, you might have watched the new theatrical edition movies for the first time, you know, 1.1, 2.22, 3.33 for the first time, and you might be wondering, what else is there in this wonderful franchise to check out? And of course, I did a video recently on the soundtracks and what's available, but you're probably looking for something a bit more story-based, and that's where this video comes in handy. Just going to take a look at the various manga and manga spin-offs that there have been over the last, 25 years since the series first came out. So the first thing I kind of want to make people aware of is this might not be an exhaustive list, but these are all the ones that I own, and certainly all the ones that I can think of that are available in the West. Now, the other thing I want to make people aware of is that not all of these are sort of traditional follow-ons of the Evangelion story. Not really continuations of it, save for anime. They're not really retellings in the same style, so your mileage might vary for it. Now, I'm going to try to I'm not going to rate these or rank them. I'm going to try to not throw too much of my own personal opinion in, because I appreciate people might like to go in blind. And also, I'm not going to be covering any sort of fan works through this. I do appreciate if you are familiar with the franchise and various works out there, there might be one particular piece of work that comes to mind. I'm not going to be talking about that one because it is a fan work, and it also can, in some forms, does contain some very adult content, which isn't really suitable. I know there's an all ages version, but I'm not really going to be talking about that one because it is ultimately fan work and not official. So the first place I'm going to start is not with a spin-off, but the actual Evangelion manga itself. So the original Evangelion manga actually started its publication, or its run, in 1994, shortly before the series' first episode aired. It's done by Yoshiyuki Sadamoto, who did the character design. He covered the story and art for the manga. Now, the manga wasn't really finished until 2014. Going by my notes, it had a massive number of pauses and breaks in between it. Now, the reason I've kind of included this, even though I'm going to be talking mostly about spin-offs here, is because the manga I do kind of view as being significantly different. It's not by Hideaki Anno, so I do think it kind of fits into that thing. Now, the interesting thing about the manga for me is when I first got into Evangelion, back in 2005, there was still a number of versions of the manga floating around, and the first volume I ever got of the manga, the volume itself was actually published in a traditional Western format of right to left, as opposed to left to right. I think I've got that right there. Yeah, so obviously you get all these in the back of your manga now. Most of us already know this. So yeah, right to left. I can't remember which one I said. I always get them mixed up. But yeah, this was the manga is now published in the original Japanese format. But where Evangelion being as old as it is for publishing in the West, the manga volumes were actually published in a traditional Western format. So when I first got into Eva and started buying the manga, I had a mixture of volumes that were traditional Western format and traditional Japanese format. I don't actually have those volumes anymore on hand to show any of you, because I actually gave them all to friends who were interested in Evangelion, and I instead got these wonderful looking omnibus editions, which they do for a lot of bigger manga nowadays. Things like Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, etc., etc., all tend to get these big compilations, these omnibus editions. So you get 3 volumes in one here. You get started off, you get to see the original covers of the manga volumes as they were collected. Get some artwork in there of it. And about halfway through you actually do get some colour artwork, if I can actually get to it. There, you get some more colour pieces there from Sadamoto. There's me just knocking the camera. So yeah, the manga is It does deviate from the original series in a few forms. The ending is a little bit different. Some of the characterization is a little bit different. It's quite interesting when you look at Shinji here. He's a little bit more snappy, a little bit sassier, a little bit more sarcastic in places. It's still kind of the Shinji we all know, but he's just a little bit different. There are a few other changes. It does skip a couple of the angel battles. Asuka kind of has a bit of a specific origin that's mentioned in there, which some people kind of liked, some people didn't. Karu comes into it a little bit earlier, and there is, of course, the infamous scene with Karu and a cat. But generally, this is as close in a manga spin-off as you'll get to traditional Evangelion experience if you want anything along those lines. This was picked up for these editions by Viz Media, and they're pretty readily available in bookshops and places like Amazon if you want them. So, now we move on to something a little bit different. So, Evangelion was brought over to the West by a company called ADV. They published it and dubbed it and subbed it on VHS and later DVD. They released a number of box sets to go along with it. And, you know, they kind of held the banner high for it. You can see the ADV logo there. And they brought over this manga, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Angelic Days. Angelic Days kind of takes place in the world imagined at the end of the series. And it's definitely not your traditional Evangelion experience. You can see straight away, dating the right girl is more important than saving the world. Yes, this is a fan-servicey romance book. Now, I have a real soft spot for Angelic Days. I appreciate it's not the traditional Evangelion experience, so your mileage is going to vary whether or not you actually want this or like it. But it's quite funny, it's cutesy, it's quite fun to read. It's a sweet story, a sweet romantic story, which if you've certainly delved into fanfic, you've probably came across a lot of waffier stuff out there. So, you know, this is worth seeking out. Unfortunately, it's published by ADV. It's never been picked up for print again by any other company, certainly not in the UK. Dark Horse haven't touched it, Viz haven't touched it, so probably quite a hard one to find legally. You probably have to look for second-hand copies of it. But if you want a sweet story using the Evangelion characters that's got a touch of romance in there, some pretty decent artwork, some pretty decent moments, I don't think you can go wrong with this one. I actually do really like this one. Next one, sticking with the romance angle, is Shinjikari Raising Project. This was also a video game in Japan. I believe it's a visual novel, but this is a really long-running one. Just to mention, Angelic Days actually was serialized between 2003 to 2005. Came out in the West in 2006. Shinjikari Raising Project started in 2005, ran till 2016. It has 18 volumes in total, and it has been collected in these big omnibus editions by Dark Horse. This, again, is a spin-off. It takes your characters and puts them into a more romancy kind of situation. There's a lot of fan service, a lot of comedy in this. Gendo is a bit of a bumbling fool in it. You've got Shinji's mother is still alive. Asuka's mother is still alive in it. All the characters are a little bit different. And the premise of this one really is they get into some wacky hijinks over the course of it. And who will Shinji end up with? Will he end up with Rei? Will he end up with Asuka? Will he end up with anyone? Again, it's not bad. I certainly won't really say if any of these are bad, because I don't want to project too much of my own opinion into it. But if you're looking for that traditional Evangelion experience, you're not going to find it here. If you're wanting something a bit more funny, a bit more fun to read, I kind of find these to be a nice antidote to the to the emotional strain that the original series puts in you, and that's kind of why I really like them. Sometimes I think you need that. But yeah, this is 18 volumes, about 5 to 6 omnibus editions. I've got 5 of them. I don't know if there's a 6th one. I can't say I've looked, but it's alright for what it is, if you want a few laughs. So the next one, not a comedy, not really a romance. This is Campus Apocalypse, again published by Dark Horse. This one ran for 4 volumes between 2007 to 2009, released over here in 2010. There's a big omnibus edition of this one, which collects all 4 volumes. This is quite an interesting one in that it reimagines the characters as if they were attending a Catholic middle school, like the private Nerve Academy. There's a secret there. Karu, Rei, and Oscar out on the streets late at night fighting with various weapons. They fight against beings called the Angels. It's an alternate reality take of Evangelion. This one had a really interesting ending, from what I recall. And it's kind of cool to sort of see the characters acting and fighting in their human form rather than relying on a robot. It's certainly not a bad one. I remember really enjoying this one. Like I say, you can collect it. You get it in an omnibus of all 4 volumes. And we'll just open it up and take a quick look at that. But it's like I say, I do remember enjoying it. I remember the ending for this one being quite an odd one, and it's a different take on the series after the 2 more comedy romantic ones. And if I'm being honest, I wouldn't mind seeing more manga kind of take the characters and do more interesting things like this. I mean, certainly that's what I like to see in the fanfic world, so why not in the official publications? So now we move on to straight up comedy and parody. Tony Takazaki's Neon Genesis Evangelion. This is just a straight up like spoof of Evangelion, sort of a spoof tribute. There's numerous short skits within this one where, you know, it's all a mixture of humour. Again, this is very much one where your mileage may vary. Some of the humour for me landed, some of it didn't. There's a bit of toilet humour in there, a bit of sexist humour in there. It's a bit of a mixture. I wasn't massively keen on this one. I know I said I don't really want to predict too much opinion on it, but being honest, I didn't really get a lot out of this particular one, but it's there if you are intrigued. But I found it did rely a little bit on toilet humour a few times, a bit too much, and it's not something that I ever really came back to. Yeah. But yeah, that one exists. And one that I don't actually have, but is referenced here, is Dark Horse's Evangelion comic tribute, which I believe is a mixture of manga authors all doing various takes, all short stories, skits based on Eva. Some of them serious, some of them not so much. I don't actually have that one, but that's another one to look out for. Next one, we remain within the realms of, shall I say, silliness, with the Legend of the Pico Pico middle school students. Premise of this one is that they know the angels are coming, the Evangelion is not ready, so in order to train them, they make them all into pro gamers. Ace is pretty much just very, very silly. Gendo in this one is absolutely sadistic. He just rips on Shinji throughout the entire course of it, forgetting he exists at some point. There's some fourth wall breaking in it, courtesy of Osaka. There's a bit of, like, bad language in there, which they take the mickey out of. This one ran for 2 volumes, as far as I'm aware, back in 2018. It's kind of, like I say, very much a parody. It sets them up as pro gamers. Your mileage may vary with this one. I kind of found it quite funny, with all of like the fourth wall breaking and silliness in there. It wasn't, it wasn't awful. It was what you expect. It was what you expect it to be, though. Come into it expecting silliness, and that's what you come out with. It's not going to change your world. The final one is one that has been over in Japan for quite a while. It's not a manga as such, but it is a light novel. This one's been serialized over there and only started getting translated copies this year. This is Evangelion Anime. This one imagines that the series and end of Evangelion didn't happen. It all finished differently. Shinji saved the world somehow. Shinji and Asuka saved the world. Gendo, Ritsuko, and the others vanished, and Nerve carried on, preparing for a future threat. Shinji becomes de facto leader of the Eva team. Misato takes up command. They create new armors and such for the angels. Now, The one thing I personally found with this one is that the author's focus seems to be more talking about upgrades to the Eva, the tech and science, trying to explain it all. If you're expecting something that gets deep into the characters, based on the first volume list that I've read, you're not really going to get that here. I can't say how it goes over the course of it, but for me, this one did very much focus on, showing off the Evas and the changes and talking about the enemies and the science behind it. But there are some cool illustrations at the front there. You get to see, the changes to the character now that they've grown up. Personally, I don't quite like how they've drawn Oscar here, because I prefer her more fiery red hair. There's also 3 more Rays to go alongside Ray. There's new characters there. Well, not all your new characters, but how they look now. You get to see, this is like what they call the battle at Nerve Headquarters. You see the fight against the mass-produced Evas. Oh, there we go. It was Oscar who was offered up. And you can see Unit 1 has had a few upgrades there, the Type F equipment. So kind of the premise with this one is that it's a few years after the events. They kind of rebuilt. Nerve has remained there, watching out for anything. They've sent up these Unit 0 units, each one with a clone of Ray in it, these new Rays that have appeared, and they're watching over for any new threat. One of them goes rogue, and along with it going rogue, a new threat appears, kind of a hybrid of an Angel and a mass-produced Eva unit. And that kind of kicks off proceedings. You get to see sort of, Shinji fights it, something interesting happens to Shinji. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but it is very, very intriguing, I guess you could say. And it just kind of picks up there, and I've knocked the camera again. I'm very professional, as you can tell. Yeah, Eva Unit 1 gets a heart, and like I said, it's a light novel form. Again, if you're expecting an Evangelion-like experience, it's not going to be the same as the series or the movies. But I think this one is definitely worth having, and it's taken a while to come over here. Like I said, I've only read the first volume. 3 volumes out at the moment. And these are pretty easy to find on online bookstores. And there you have it. Just a very quick overview of the Evangelion manga and manga spin-offs that exist out there, and I hope you all got something useful from this. Do let me know in the comments if you've read any of these and what any of your favourites are, or perhaps if you've read any sort of Eva fics out there, delved into the fandom and seen any of your own favourites, what your favourites are. I'm very intrigued to know, and as always, thank you very much for watching this. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe if you can, and I'll see you all in the next video.